The exciting sport of Formula One racing has a lot more intricacies than most people know. What does it take to manage an F1 team? What are the priorities? How do you manage your drivers? Well, according to Christian Horner, team principal for Oracle Red Bull Racing, and today's guest on the show, work culture should be inclusive, fun, and built on solid teamwork. In part one of this interview, Christian and I talk about some of the biggest changes he's seen in F1 during his motorsports career, what it's been like working with incredibly talented drivers all these years, and how Oracle Red Bull Racing is balancing changes to F1 regulations while still maximizing performance, and a whole lot more. Today, I'm speaking to someone that's a race car driver. He's founded in the past his own racing team. He's a team principal for a Formula One team that's won 13 championships, broken all sorts of records along the way. And he's even one of the big stars on the Netflix Drive to Survive series. I am really looking forward to my conversation with Christian Horner, team principal for Oracle Red Bull Racing. Christian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So, you've had a great year, 1-2 in the finish. You've won the championship, constructors, drivers. And then after you win a championship, you're all excited, you're partying, prize giving with the FIA. And then the holidays come, you can step back, relax, you're on vacation, you try and let work go. But in the back of your mind, racing is probably popping in and out. So, now that you've had a little bit of time to reflect for the last few weeks, what are or how have your ambitions and your expectations of what you think you can achieve in the coming year changed?
They haven't really changed because the problem is this business never stays still. So even though we've achieved all those things in 2023, your mind immediately, from the point that the championships are sealed, are already into the following season, into the future, into 2026 with a brand new set of regulations that are coming down the pipeline as well. So yes, Christmas is a great time and New Year holidays for a bit of time with the family. They get used to having you around. Also this time of year, there's not as much travel as during the race season. But it's been a bit of time for reflection, but everybody's hit the ground running very hard as 2024 has kicked off.
Does racing, when you're on vacation, when you're through the holidays, does racing pop into your mind a lot, or would you say it's almost gone completely?
I think, look, if you're a racer at heart, it's always in there, somewhere. But it's important to be able to get downtime, spend time with your family, and recharge. Otherwise, it's unsustainable being consumed by Formula One for 365 days of the year.
Are you fully recharged right now? Would you say?
Yeah. I had a good break. There was the first mandatory break over the Christmas holidays enforced by the governing body, which was, I think, a really positive thing. So everybody's looking, refreshed and recharged and ready for the season ahead.
What's the most fun thing you did during the break? Most fun?
I think it was just spending time with my family, and we got to do things that we don't usually get to do as a family during that time. I've got a young family, and it's always just great to get time with them.
So when you started as team principal, you're 31 years old, 2005. You celebrated your 50th birthday last November. So almost 20 years that you've had this job. So over those 20 years, how would you say, what are the biggest changes that you've seen in Formula One? What do you think are the things that has made the sport evolve the most? Let's just say from a technology standpoint, the big changes over the time you've been principal here.
I think the technology has just moved forward immensely from the point that I arrived. The simulation tools we use now are so advanced. All of the tools that we work with, the regulations have changed dramatically since I arrived at the beginning of 2005 with several major regulation iterations.
What's the biggest regulation you think that's had an impact on how you had to engineer the car?
Well, I think there's been a few along the way. I mean, there was a big change from 2008 into 2009 as the car's aerodynamics got changed dramatically. There was a big change. Then in 2013 into 14 with a massive engine formula change. There was a big change in 17 with another significant chassis change. And then, of course, the latest set of regulations that we had that were introduced in 2022, again, another significant change.
Yeah, and more to come too. We'll talk about those probably in a short while here. So you were a race car driver, and race car drivers have certain personalities and certain approach to problems. How has having been a race car driver in the past formed like who you are as a team principal?
Well, I think it gave me a great education because being a driver actually can be quite a lonely experience. You're sitting in the cockpit and you're looking out, and you need to feel that you've got a team behind you, that the team believes in you. And I think that I drove some good teams and not so good teams in my career, and the difference was always the people and the culture in that team, and that would inspire and get the best out of you as a driver. And certainly that's the way I've always tried to operate any race team that I've been involved in, to get the best out of people, to work collectively as a team, and to work as a group.
But if you've had the excitement of being in the cockpit and driving, and then suddenly you make this decision, oh, maybe it's not for me. And I've heard you talk about it before, is as you go from karting to higher levels of racing, it gets more and more difficult. And I've heard you tell the story of following Juan Pablo Montoya into a turn. And I'll tell you the thing that really stuck with me from that story you told is I was following through the turn and I could see the tire almost coming off the wheel or something. How did you know that you'd finally pushed yourself to the limit? Because that's a hard thing for people to do in any kind of career. How did you know that was it?
I think you just have to be honest with yourself, and the higher you get, the tougher it gets. And I recognize that, at that level, I didn't have my head, my brain, and my foot were connected.
A hand coordination or something?
I could feel a debate going on. My heart was saying one thing, my head was saying another regarding, the amount of commitment in high-speed corners, for example, and seeing and witnessing that with a driver like Juan Pablo. It's very clearly that, I thought, okay, I can't do that. I can't disengage to a point to let myself go to commit that amount of risk. And I think as soon as you start building in margins, and I knew that, look, okay, this, I need to use what I've learned and apply it to something else.
What kind of car were you driving in? Was that a Formula 3000 at that point?
Formula 3000, which is the equivalent of a Formula 2 car. That was the naming of the championship at that time.
Have you ever gotten into one of your more recent F1 cars and tried it out?
No, I haven't. I've never driven a Red Bull car. Maybe this year in our 20th year, you never know. Maybe I'll get a chance to.
Well, you don't have to go full throttle. You could. So over all these years, how has the role that the team principal plays? How is it? What are the big significant changes that you've seen over this time?
I think scale. Obviously, I'm team principal and CEO now of a big group of people, and it's not just Red Bull Racing. It's technology. It's Red Bull powertrains. It's Red Bull Advanced Technologies as well.
So more of there's other aspects in the racing
more diverse. Team. And the role obviously has evolved over the years. We've got a lot more partners that we work with now. The business is a lot bigger. When I first came here, there was about 430 people. This year, right now, we're about 1,600 people on site.
So you're running a company?
Yeah, running a significant company.
So you're running a company and you're running a racing team.
Yeah.
So when people see you on Drive to Survive, and they think, well, this is his job. He's got to make this car go faster. He's got to make this team click. But running a company with that many people, it's not an easy thing to do, obviously, as I'm sure you know. So the fact that you now also have to run a company where you didn't have to, a much bigger company than you didn't have to 20 years ago, how has that changed in how you're able, did you have to change how you were managing the racing team so you could give it what it needed?
I think you've got to get good people around you. And I liken it that from Monday to Friday, I'm the CEO of a high performance technology business. And for 24 weekends of the year, I'm the team principal of a leading sports team. That involves a lot of travel as well. And I think that, you have to have good people around you, and you have to delegate, and you have to obviously guide, but you have to empower the management around you. Otherwise, the stuff that we're doing would never be possible.
Yeah, I guess it's like
You can't be over every single detail of everything that's going on in a business with 1,600 people in.
good advice for any CEO. I mean, you got to learn how to delegate, right?
You
Especially
got
as
to
you
be
grow.
able to let go. You got to set the goals, set the targets.
What was the hardest thing you ever had to let go of?
I learned reasonably quickly to say, manage the things that or focus on the things that you can control rather than the things that you can't. And that's where to put your energy, where to put your focus and time.
As you grew the organization, right, there was probably some things that you said that you really enjoyed doing, right?
Yeah.
Many. But then you had to say, I just don't have time for those anymore. What was the most fun thing you enjoyed doing that you finally had to let go and let somebody else do?
It's difficult to say, really, because I've still stayed involved across all the fundamental aspects, but perhaps, not quite as at the coalface, as it were. Race weekends haven't changed for me. I'm still on the pit wall. I'm still working with the strategists and the race engineers, running how the run. And that for me is
You're still in the action, right?
absolute basis of what I do. I'm very involved in the commercial side of the business and driving that. The technology and the engineering side of the business, again, I'm not an engineer by trade. I just try to surround myself with the best in the business, whether that's Adrian Newey or Pierre Vacher or the plethora of talent that we have throughout all of the technology businesses here.
Did you ever wish that maybe you should have been an engineer?
No.
No?
I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and it's about dealing with people and trying to get the best out of people. And I'm privileged to work with a great group of people in the team, and that's the thing I take most satisfaction about.
You mentioned the pit wall. I'm sure it must be fun to be on the pit wall and figuring things out. So over these 20 years, if you could go back and change one decision you made when you're on the pit wall, what would be which one would you
Of
change?
course, there's always things that you learn.
You can have more than one if you
You're
want.
learning every race. You're learning all the time. But I always think you don't look back. Learn from your actions and apply them to the future. And so very rare I look back and think, oh, I wish I'd have just done. I say we're very forward looking. I've always been very forward looking. So of course there's always things that you can do better, but I've not procrastinated on them, and I've learned from them. And maybe we've lost a position through the timing of a pit stop, but it's more about the lessons that you learn and applying them to the future.
How would you compare 2010 to 2013 working with Sebastian? How would you contrast that to working with Max in the 21 to 23 era?
Are both hugely talented, great drivers, and Sebastian was a pleasure to work with, as is Max, but different characters. Sebastian was very intense, very into the detail, very, very, very interested in all technical aspects of the car. He would go to Pirelli, our tire supplier, to understand how they manufactured the tires, for example, when we changed tire manufacturer, because he was hungry.
The details.
He was hungry for info. He was hungry for detail. Max, much more laid back in terms of the technicality of the car, but absolute gift and driving force in the car that you're going to get 110% out of him. Testing is not his favorite thing. He's just a race driver. He just wants to race the car, and that is what his thrill and enjoyment comes from.
But doesn't that make it hard for the engineers? Like you said, Sebastian's into the details. He wants to go visit the tire manufacturer, so he's probably going to be into telling you the details of what he felt in a turn. And Max is more like qualitative.
No. I mean, a Sebastian debrief would take about an hour and a half, as he would describe from the moment that he left the garage to go to the grid to pretty much going to the toilet after the race. With Max, he will just focus on what he needs to go faster. He'll just focus on the limitations of the car rather than telling you a story about everything that's happened. He's smart enough. He knows the amount of data that we have, and he'll just focus the engineers on, this is limiting me from going quicker. This is what I need. This is, forget the other stuff. I can cope with that, but focus on this.
Which is better for the engineers of those two approaches, you think?
I think both. I mean, data engineers are always hungry for data and information.
Anything they can get, right?
Anything they can get. And of course, we have a huge amount of sensors and logging on the car, but the driver, as the operator, he's getting that feeling, and he's dictating, how the car is being driven. So, he's the biggest input, and therefore he's got a real sensitivity, and so therefore the feedback from the driver is invaluable alongside the data.
When a driver, a race car driver, puts the helmet on, sometimes their personality changes. So when they take it off, the
Yeah.
opposite happens. So helmet's off, you're hanging out and you're having a beer with each of those guys. How do you compare what they're like when they
both-
don't have their helmet
They're
on?
both great fun, and they're both really nice guys, and they're just fun to be around, and both hugely competitive when they've got a helmet on or are sitting in a car. But outside of the car, just really nice, guys to hang out with, spend time with. Both have great senses of humor, and it's just enjoyable to spend time with.
You say competitive off the track. And I'm sure that must be with you too, then, right? What have you done that's competitive with them off the track?
There's always competition, whether it's playing paddle tennis or on a tennis court with Sebastian or on a paddle tennis court with Max.
Can you win? Do you beat them, or
they're hungry. Sebastian would want to keep playing until he could beat you.
did he eventually?
So he'd wear you down through his physical condition, I would say, rather than skill. But it's always interesting to see in any other sporting aspect, you see the character of the individual come through, the competitiveness, how hungry they are, how much they want it.
Is Max a paddle tennis guy too, or is he?
Yeah, he's obsessed with it. He's
really
playing all the time. He's playing.
Does he ever play Sebastian? Have they ever, or him and Checo or anything?
They've ever played, but that would be an interesting game.
Have you seen this series called Beyond All Limits, Hamilton versus Verstappen? It's just 3 24-hour episodes. I saw it on the plane when
I haven't, no.
It's a series about the competitive years between Hamilton and Max. And it starts off with Sir Jackie Stewart. And he says, God has given gifts to 20 men to race in Formula One.
Yeah.
Then there's the top 6. Then there's the extraordinary 3. And then there's the genius with a head to take it to another level. Mind is everything. Genius to take it to another level. So what is it? What is it you think that's in the mind of Max that's not in the mind of the extraordinary 3, the other 2? What is it?
Difficult, because I don't know the other 3. I've not worked. I've not worked with them. But what I do see in Max is just a hunger, a desire, a huge natural talent.
More hungry than other drivers, you think?
Quite probably, yes. I think you can see it in the way he drives. He drives with a lot of heart. He drives with a lot of passion. He drives with huge commitment, huge bravery. And, you see that in some of the great drivers, whether it was the late, great Ayrton Senna or Michael Schumacher, or, more modern drivers like Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso. They share those kind of characteristics.
As the team principal, can you create that passion?
No.
In another? No? Have you ever tried? Or
it's either there or it's inbuilt. I mean, I'm sure the top 50 tennis players in the world technically are all at a probably fairly similar skill level. It's pressure points. It's the big sporting moments, which is, that last set of tires in qualifying. It's when the pressure comes, how they deal with pressure, which is the most crucial element.
Speaking about passion, right? I think it was at the Belgian Grand Prix where Max had some passionate words with his race engineer.
Yeah, there's been a few of those.
So, like you said, if you're going to be successful, you got to be passionate.
Yeah.
So when there's a lot of passionate people together, and that's just like one teeny example, you must run into it quite a bit. What's some advice you could give to people that have to manage a big group of very, very passionate people if they didn't have that passion, you wouldn't be successful? What's some advice there?
I think that people have got to let off steam. They've got to vent sometimes, and I think that obviously there has to be a respect, but to bottle that up and constrain it, it tends to come out sideways. So you've got to allow them to vent. You've got to allow them to, to express themselves. The problem that we have, unlike any other sport, if you were a football or a soccer player on the field and you were having a moment, either talking to yourself or maybe even to your coach, it's not publicized. Whereas everything in Formula One, every communication between driver and engineer at the most emotive moment in time is captured and broadcast to
certainly Drive to Survive is getting it all right.
So, and then as soon as they stop and they get out the car, they've got a microphone under their nose. Before they get in the car or start a race, they've got a microphone under their nose. So it's very intrusive compared to other sports, and that's why you get to see and hear more sometimes of the of the pressure point moments.
So it must be possible to have too much passion, right? If you can't, you must have seen someone somewhere gone too far, too passionate, maybe butting heads a little bit too much.
Sometimes, I mean, it's easy, isn't it? I mean, if you look at Sergio Perez's race in Mexico, the desire that he had to lead that Grand Prix into the first corner outweighed his judgment, and he made a move that didn't pay off and cost him, participation in the race. So, those moments can and will happen in any sport, in any walk of life.
So Checo was part of your 1-2 finish, but things weren't always smooth sailing with Checo through the whole year, let's just say. What advice are you giving him now for the year that's coming up?
I think we know what Checo is capable of, and when Checo's firing on all cylinders, he's a phenomenal driver and racer, and Grand Prix winner, and finishing as the runner-up in last year's World Championship. So I think he just needs to ensure that he's consistent over a 24-race calendar and qualifying, within the front part of the grid, so that he can be a real factor on Sunday races. So I would say qualifying is probably the biggest thing that he needs to focus on of consistency.
How do you? I mean, you can tell someone to be more consistent, but if I was Checo and I said to you, okay, I want to be more consistent, Christian, what do I need to do? What do you recommend? What?
I think that's just an approach as well. Is just trying to achieve a consistency in your approach to a Grand Prix weekend, your travel, your application, to it. It's controlling the elements and removing the distractions to be able to be absolutely in the zone.
Get them to focus more,
for those moments in time.
On a team, you've got a team principal.
Yeah.
You've got technical director.
Yeah.
And you've got Adrian Newey, chief technical officer.
Yeah.
So Adrian used to be really involved in the designing of the cars. He stepped back a little bit, working a lot with Red Bull Advanced Technologies now, designing submarines and all sorts of things. Yeah. So when it comes to those three, but he's still involved, right? They're still bouncing ideas.
Very, very much so, and very much involved in the concept and development of the car, and working with the engineers, challenging the engineers, acting as a mentor. So he's still very much involved.
So between those three roles, where would you say the driving force is as to driving the design forward?
They're all different. I mean, Adrian is more of a sort of maverick role, that he has the freedom to move.
That's the fun role.
To move around the organization, to challenge, to influence, to come up with creations. Pierre is much more process driven, because he's looking at the whole campaign, he's looking at the whole development program, he's looking at the compliance with the financial regs as well, where we should spend our money in what areas of development. So and you need all the creativity, you need all of the managerial side, and of course the engineering groups are doing an incredible job. In what they're doing and what they're producing and developing.
McLaren showed their new livery this week, and Zach Brown said, I'm a little bit worried about those guys over there at Red Bull, because I think they started working on the new car a little early last year because they didn't have to worry about the car from last year. Actually, was that an advantage for you? Were you able to start working on the car sooner rather than later?
I think we've had such a good basis in 2023 that it's evolution, not revolution. But of course, we were further up the curve on a set of very stable regulations. So others started to catch at the end of the year, different rivals at different circuits. And I think that will continue into 2024. I think that we will have more competition from our competitors. As inevitably with stability, there will be convergence.
Were you able to take some extra time in the last year to sort of put more time into the new car?
I think the fact that we managed to win the championship early obviously enables you then to flip your resource early to the following year. But of course, we've had some fairly major constraints in wind tunnel time because of obviously where you are in the championship. There's effectively a handicap system of the amount of time of wind tunnel usage that you're allowed.
So the way the regulations are set up, it's not as big as an advantage.
No, the way that the regulations set up are to give more development time to those that are further down the grid.
I suppose if you have more rules and they become more complex, you have to study them more, but there may be more loopholes in there that you can find.
Regulations are incredibly complex, and it's sort of layer on layer upon layer of regulation, and that's what sometimes makes it hard, and that's why we have the ability to ask for clarifications on the interpretation of regulations.